Sustainability Commission. Being passionate loss and biodiversity, Natalie Lynn speaks at local and international events such as this to help teach people of all ages the importance of conservation and living a sustainable lifestyle. She has founded her nonprofit organization, Green Dolphin Project Global, which we've heard about, where their mission is to connect people of the Great Lakes to our great oceans. And that's the motto in caps. Through her passion for, this is going to get too small for me. Cut off a little bit. Anyway, through her passion for the oceans, she is bringing a lot of good to the world and improvising that. And I'm very excited to have her speak to you today. Her presentation is Sturgeon and Splash, connecting people of the Great Lakes to the Great Oceans with Green Dolphin Project Global. So thank you very much. Please welcome Natalie.
All right, so how's everybody doing today? So, my name is Natalie Lynn Littenberg, and I will be presenting Sturgeon and Splash. So first we're going to go through, I just went through the introductions, then I will tell you about Sturgeon and Splash and what's the connection. Then we'll go over a little paleontology. Then I'm going to tell you exactly about Green Dolphin Project Global, the why and the how, our research, microplastic children's education that we do, our cleanup initiatives, and then our wildlife trafficking, and lastly, how you can connect with us. So first, meet Sturgeon. The sturgeon fish group is comprised of 28 different species belonging to the family, I'm not even going to try to pronounce this, Acidae. Our character sturgeon was chosen to represent our freshwater species whose lives depend on good water quality. Being that this family of fish has been around since the late Cretaceous period, he is the perfect example of the possible longevity of certain species if certain conditions are met. They have earned the name living fossils. With their evolution being exceptionally slow, they have a high tolerance to wide temperature ranges and salinities, as they can be found in both fresh and salt water. Other factors for their lack of evolution include the fact that they have a long lifespan with later maturity, being that they haven't had a major predator until man, their ability to thrive on our planet went unhindered. So now, as you know, they are often harvested for the roe, often considered a delicacy. As we know, sturgeons are bony fish, not cartilaginous, like sharks, though they don't have real true bone. It's been stated in mythology that the Greek god Zeus and his wife would choose to eat the sturgeon fish, as it was considered a delicacy even back then. They are now still considered highly valuable for various reasons, especially the caviar-producing varieties. They are considered the most valuable and endangered of all wildlife resources. So this is a video that my great friend Rhona Smithson took. So this is actual recent footage that she took. So they're still around in our environment and able to be seen. So the symbolic dolphin for Green Dolphin Project was chosen to represent the ocean or saltwater. Being that it's a very charismatic animal, many people enjoy this animal and can relate to it. It's a newer creature compared to the sturgeon fish. Dolphins first appeared as fossils from the early Miocene epoch, 23 million to 16 million years ago, a time when the cetacean fauna was more diverse. For the name Green Dolphin Project Global, it combines this charismatic symbol with our green way of thinking. We stand for protecting water for bags are from the ships that are falling off, minerals, and plastic trash in general. Wastewater treatment plants can dump microplastics from our washer and body products into the lakes. The plastic is floating in the air, it's in water runoff and sewer runoff. Some of the biggest culprits are cigarette butts, plastic bags, packaging materials, and single-use disposable items. I will say this is just a part of the pollution problem that also involves chemicals, agriculture, release, invasive species, air pollution, etc. We are actually up against a lot. And I know you guys know a lot of this, so maybe it's a refresher. So I just wanted to give some examples of how this plastic is being ingested in these animals. Blue whales can eat up to 10 million microplastic pieces per day, which is about 43.6 kilograms for the weight of a 13-year-old human. Humpback whales can eat about 200,000 microplastic pieces per day. Fin whales can eat between 3 million and 10 million microplastic pieces a day. So locally, recent IISG, which stands for the Illinois-Indiana Sea Grant, they funded research at Loyola University. They have shown that the fish in 3 Lake Michigan tributaries are ingesting microplastics also. Biologists John Kelly and Tim Holdian found that 85% of all fish tested contain on average at least 13 pieces of microplastic in their digestive tract. So now we're going to do a little paleontology, and I'm going to admit I'm not an expert in this. But as you know, the dinosaurs are inspiring the minds of the creatives and fantasy of today. Marine sea monsters, reptilian dinosaurs that transitioned to water. Over 60 million years ago, super predators such as the ichthyosaurs, plesiosaurs, and the mosasaurs roamed the seas. I think these guys are really awesome the way they look. I really wanted to go see them. During the Mesozoic era, 252 to 66 million years ago, there were at least 500 species belonging to 10 or so orders of reptiles. In fact, new ones are discovered every year. The only so-called marine reptiles left today are one crocodile, one lizard, a few turtles, and some snakes. You can correct me if I'm wrong. So, check out this mosasaurus though. Almost all aquatic marine dinosaurs were carnivores, with very few plant eaters. Hard to imagine something like this in our world today. As we know, there is the cumulative effect of pollution, leaving carnivores the most susceptible to its effects. Possibly why we have more vegetarian or new creatures these days, who knows? But, I want to ask the question to everybody, like, how long would these sea creatures have survived in today's world? Aside from the fact that, of course, they would have been harvested and persecuted, but how would they have survived with all the pollution issues and everything that we have going on today? So we are grateful to people like Mark Turner, who has worked faithfully to bring these magnificent creatures into our space, where we can truly see their size and magnificence at the Indiana Dinosaur Museum. Archelon is an extinct marine turtle from the late Cretaceous period, and is the largest turtle ever to have ever been documented, with the biggest specimen measuring 4.6 meters from head to tail. Archelon was much larger than today's sea turtles, and some species may have been over 15 feet long. It had a hooked beak and powerful jaws. They were likely used to crush hard-shell crustaceans and mollusks, but may have also been adapted for shearing fish. The increasing threat of egg or hatching predation by new marine and mammalian species may have led to the extinction of the Archelon. They also lived in the western interior seaway, which may have shrunk over time. Also, as we know with climate change, the climate may have cooled during the Archelon's time. So what animals lived during the time of dinosaurs that still exist today? The first animal that comes to mind, of course, sharks. These oceanic predators that haunt your nightmares have been in the oceans for about 450 million years, well before dinosaurs even arrived on the scene. And they've survived 4 of the 5 big extinction events. It's hard to imagine they would likely prey to the immense Spinosaurus. Other animals that also existed during the time of the dinosaurs, or even from before, include crocodiles, sea stars, platypus, green sea turtles, and cockroaches. Has anyone seen platypus here? So I had the amazing opportunity to see platypus when I went to Australia. We went to a very remote lake area, and we had to be completely silent, walking and waiting for like an hour before the platypus actually showed up briefly at the surface. So it's one of my favorite memories that I'll remember for a long time. So I think this should play. This is when I was diving in the Bahamas again. We had lemon sharks, yeah, and especially tiger sharks, so it was pretty awesome. There's the master tiger shark coming through. Getting back to other animals that also existed during the time, lest we forget Andre's second favorite behind sharks. And I forgot to introduce Andre, I'm so sorry. He is our managing director of the Green Dolphin Product. So Andre, if you can raise your hand. So Andre's second favorite animal behind sharks is the lobster. So there's a lobster there occupying the space behind the crab. So anytime that Andre sees a lobster while we're diving, I'm very obligated to go over and take a picture of it. And so it's like, come on, you can tell, come on. It's just like, come on, it's just a dumb lobster, you know? But yeah, they're great creatures, so I do not eat them. So let's get back to the Green Dolphin Project Global, what we're all about, and our current initiatives. So we are all things water, all things wildlife, from pollution to wildlife trafficking. How can we not get involved in wildlife trafficking, being that we are a Chicagoland-based area, or very organization, and we're close to one of the largest airports. We focus on issues from human-caused climate change to waste pollution to providing sustainable ecotourism. Our goal is to help people to understand more about how our water in the Chicagoland or Midwest area is connected to these oceans. And to do this, we have them get involved on a deeper level through action locally and globally. One of our biggest goals is to tackle microplastic pollution. We will do this through education, research, and action. So what are microplastics? Is anybody familiar with microplastics? So they are plastics that are 5 millimeters or smaller, and they're the most dangerous of plastics, even more so than the larger plastics. As we know, microplastics have been found in just about every nook and cranny possible. And we can't even say how long they take to completely decompose, but estimates are greater than thousands of years, if ever. We haven't been around long enough to do the studies. It's been said that plastics remain in the environment forever. So these are just 4 examples of how these microplastics are entering the water systems through stormwater runoff, through washing machines, and this is one of the largest culprits. Tires, just driving to work or whatever, we're creating microplastics as it's coming off of our tires. And then of course degradation of larger plastics, you know, that's just stating the obvious. So these microplastics have huge effects on human health. They're embedded within, where we breathe in 13,000 microfibers alone per year. They create pulmonary disease, including bronchitis, pneumonia, and cancer. They have endocrine disrupting chemicals that are numerous and well known. Their plastics are now getting into the blood, as we know, the gut and the brain, the placenta even. Wasn't just that they can travel throughout the body via the bloodstream. And then, if you know, plastic is a pathogenic attractant as biofilms. The surface of microplastics absorb pathogens such as bacteria, fungus, and viruses. So more research still needs to be done. You know, obviously we want to create legislation to try to eradicate these microplastics. And the way our system works is that we have to have the scientific evidence to prove things before we can actually make the laws and try to pass the laws. So how harmful exactly are these microplastics on us? That's what we're trying to find out. So, okay, this is just crazy that 700,000 tiny microplastic fibers come off clothes in just one load of laundry. And these are not completely filtered out of our water system. And I feel horrible because I do not have a filter on my washing machine yet, and I just did 4 loads of laundry just on Wednesday, so I feel awful. Maybe Andre will install the filter. So, fish mistake plastics for food. Megafauna such as whale sharks feed on plankton, swimming through the ocean with their mouths open, taking in tons of gallons of water and everything within. Sea turtles unintentionally consume the plastic in the open ocean when they mistake single-use plastic bags for jellyfish and brightly colored plastics as plant material. Plastics do not biodegrade, as we know, but they do photodegrade. This is a process that breaks them down into smaller and smaller pieces through exposure to sunlight. So there's obviously a focus on microplastic pollution also at the Great Lakes or Lake Michigan beaches. We've worked with the Shedd Aquarium to collect and measure microplastics off the shores of Lake Michigan. The numbers of plastic collected was astounding. So I just wanted to get into a little bit of our research, which involves detection, data, and documentation, which we know is critical for change. And I will mention here, I'm still working on applying for grants and funding to complete this research. So let's talk about biosolids. What are they? So biosolids are the materials that are produced through the filtering of our wastewater. Much of the tiny plastics are caught in filters, though not all of them. This material is then dried, cleaned, treated, and then sold or given away for local agriculture and communities. So yes, this material is being used to fertilize our crops. And yes, that means that we are fertilizing our crops with microplastic contaminated fertilizer. Which the public doesn't know about, right? So locally, looking at my local waste treatment center, there's an idea of how wastewater is processed and how biosolids are formed and treated. I'll mention that this is a generic description and not specific. There is a primary treatment. Consists of removing the contaminants by some physical mechanism, such as screens removing debris, which can clog the machinery. The wastewater flows into chambers where heavy solids such as sand and grit sink to the bottom. These solids are washed before being deposited into a sanitary landfill. It then goes to a primary settlement tank where there is a significant portion of the organic solids which settle to the bottom, while fats, oils, grease rise to the top. Revolving arms simultaneously scrape the primary untreated solids from the bottom and skim the grease from the top. Then there is a secondary treatment. So this is a very long process to treat our drinking water or toilet water or whatever, in the Chicagoland area. The secondary treatment usually employs a biological process whereby a large population of microorganisms help convert the remaining organic material into other forms which can be easily separated into solids and into clear liquid. The primary effluent flows through a series of large rectangular aeration tanks which have been seeded with bacteria and other microbes, tiny organisms which exist naturally in plant and animal life. Filtered air comes through the liquid to enable the microbes to breathe and grow in the constantly, hold on a second, I lost my spots, constantly churning water. So these microbes flourish and multiply, eating the remaining organic materials and nutrients in the wastewater. This mixture of microbes and water flows into a secondary settling tank. The microbes now stabilize, come together and settle to the bottom of the tank where they become part of the organic residues and are removed. Approximately 85% of these microbes are recycled to the start of the aeration tanks to begin the biological treatment process. process for the primary effluents. The cleaned water flows out of the top of the secondary suckling tank to be returned to the waterway or to the tertiary treatment. So that will be the most complicated stuff I would say. So the current wastewater treatment plant has a biosolid EPA standard. So in doing my research, I obtained these EPA regulations. The biosolids are in the U.S. are regulated under 40 CFR Part 503. The copy of the regulations I recently received, which are the current one, is from July 2003. So this tells me that we are still functioning with 20-year-old ideas and knowledge. Biosolids are classified as Class A or Class B. The Class A biosolids are termed EQ biosolids, referring to exceptional quality. There is concern over the effect of pathogens from biosolids on animal health, especially in light that human pathogens can cross species lines and infect animals, and vice versa, most particularly warm-blooded animals. Because of this concern, 503 regulations require that sewer sludge undergoes pathogen treatment prior to land application. Obviously, Class A biosolids, the EQ biosolids, go through a more rigorous protocol than the Class B. The Class B biosolids are site restricted. Very little research has been done with regards to animal exposure to these biosolids. It is thought that agriculture animals would have a higher exposure. And of course, we're eating these animals. So, general approaches to controlling pathogens and vector attraction in sewer sludge include the application of high temperatures, radiation, chemical disinfectants, reduction of the sewer sludge's volatile organic matter, removal of moisture from the sludge. Through various methods, the sludge is tested and reported for various organisms, with the EPA giving limited ranges of acceptability. But like I said, we're still talking about regulations from 20 years ago. The density is defined as and reported as the number of microorganisms per unit mass of total dry solids. These regulations are lengthy and intense. So when I told you I got the EPA regulations, they're literally, the packet is this thick that I had to go through to try to find the information I needed for my research. And who even wants to read all that? So there is still a lot of research that needs to be done. So biosolids, do they pose a health risk? For us, we are focusing on one risk that we might find valuable and important to human and animal life. One health risk with the land application of biosolids is the potential exposure to pathogens. For us, the disease-causing organisms. So organisms in this category include, but are not limited to, bacteria, protozoa, viruses, and viral helminth ova. Our research will be determining the pathogenicity of microplastic particles present in biosolid material from various waste treatment plants. We will be obtaining biosolid material from local and possibly non-local, but still Midwest waste treatment plants. Through a partnership with a university in Arizona, biosolid material will have the microplastics removed in such a way as not to disturb the characteristics of the microplastics that are being removed. This research is currently confidential and in trial. Removed microplastic material will then be will be cultured on microbiological plates to determine the growth of any stool pathogens such as Shigella, Salmonella, Campylobacter, and Vibrio. I was planning on doing this in my garage, so that's not a problem. I already picked out the month and time here. As to the state, no such study has been performed from an end user standpoint, which is why this research is so valuable. It has not been tested from the homeowner's point of view to know if those bacteria are truly removed. Because as you know, the wastewater treatment plant is treating our wastewater, which is from our toilets, which has these, salmonella organisms, the Shigella organisms, all that. And because microplastics are such good attractors to the organisms, there's a high possibility that these could still be present on the particles. So any potential health hazard organisms that I could find, I would be sending out for confirmatory testing. I used to work in a microbiology and virology lab, so I have some connections there to get some of this testing done. So the specific plate to be used in order to grow the specific bacterial organism that I'm looking for. These 4 bacteria were specifically chosen due to their being the most common pathogens in stool samples. Being that these samples are from waste treatment plants, we thought that these would be the most important to look at. And like I mentioned, we are looking for Shigella, Salmonella, Campylobacter, and Vibrio. Confirmation of any suspicious results will be performed by the MALDI-TOF technique. So this is one of the more modern techniques in the microbiological lab. It is a mass spectrometry that is a powerful analytical technique. By mapping out the block-by-block structure of a sample, a mass spectrometer can identify unknown molecules. This process identifies bacteria by recognizing patterns in the complex mass spectrometry makes the microorganisms using a robust database of common patterns that are used for each, it's like a fingerprint for each different bacteria. The MALDI-TOF works with much smaller samples, making purification unnecessary. So if you know anything about the microbiological lab, when you find an organism, you have to pick that organism off the plate, and then you have to separate it onto another plate to try to isolate the species that you're looking for. But with the MALDI-TOF, it works with much smaller samples. Even if a plate contains multiple different colonies, a scientist can focus on one tiny colony without having to isolate and regrow. After one overnight growth, answers come in minutes. So sometimes when we were working in the laboratory, cultures would take up to 7 days. Some organisms grow really fast and some grow really slow. Especially if you're doing like a blood culture or something like that where the patient is critically ill, you definitely want to get your results quicker. So that's why this MALDI-TOF is such a great new test that they have for hospital labs. Getting to the issue of preventing the issue of microplastic. What as individuals can we do now that do not add to the problem or better to help solve it? Short term is getting a filter for your washing machine. This is not a perfect solution, but as we know, adding a little bit helps. I'm kind of mixed with the fact that you're buying this filter to filter out plastics, and then it's going to be probably a big plastic filter that you're going to filter out microplastics, but the filters are disposed of once they're used, and they're disposed of in the landfill waste. So thereby just disposing it in a more contained land location, rather than going into our water systems and possibly creating more ill effects. So we are just figuring this out right now, and hopefully in the future, more and better options will be available. There's a bunch of filters available on the market to put on your washing machine. One of the biggest ones is called Planet Care. I've noticed over the past couple of years that the number of filters being available has now expanded and the market is growing. Long term, while we've already had legislation passed for reading microplastics, as you know, or may or may not know, in 2015 a law was passed eliminating the microplastic beads out of soaps and things like that. We used to have body washes with little microplastic beads. So in 2015 the legislation was passed. There's other legislations that are still in the process called what is called the Break Free from Plastic Act. Statewide, California has passed an expensive piece that is very encompassing in nature and first in the nation. It includes pollution prevention, pathway prevention, public outreach, education, risk assessment, monitoring, and engagement for future activities. So I'm part of a plastic organization called the Coalition for Plastic Reduction, and we are highly monitoring all the different states and what kind of plastic legislation they have already passed or that they're working on. And then as a state of Illinois, we try to make our laws that we want to pass, kind of try to tailor them to what other states have already passed, because then it's going to be more passable when other states are more successful with it. So just for long term, if you want to get involved with the Coalition for Plastic Reduction, this is Christopher, Illinois, I have to mention. Send an email to plastics@list.ilembiro.org to be added to the listserv. Next, long-term and choose clothing that are made with organic, sustainable materials such as organic cotton, hemp, bamboo, and more. Okay, so we are also working on children's education. Namely, we have a microplastic class for kids. We're teaching the kids about water quality and specifically microplastic pollution and in general plastic pollution. There's a lecture portion where they learn the basic facts of plastic, where it comes from, and what to do to prevent the pollution. Then there's a wet lab where we look at microplastic under the microscope. We actually obtain water samples. If possible, I have the children obtain the water samples, or if the class can be done like in November or they're not close to water, then I bring my own water samples. And the microplastic actually will fluoresce under the microscope using a UV light. So using these little tiny microscopes and filtering the water, the kids are able to see the microplastics really easily. They fluoresce a bright blue. So all the class materials and lesson plans were developed by the Shedd Aquarium, for which I had taken a class so that I could teach this. Another initiative that we are actively working on is for the cleanups, where we engage both local and overseas community in activities that enable them to be more aware, to be more educated, and to be more invested with their heart to protect their water. As you know, when somebody starts to care about something and love it, they're more willing to protect it. So we have 2 cleanups coming up, and one is in just 2 weeks. Our local cleanup is coming to the Chicagoland area, and there's nothing to bring. It's on September 14th. We are also doing a cleanup in Mexico, where we will be taking data actually on the type of plastic pollution that we're picking up. In efforts to use this to provide evidence for further action to be taken to prevent this future pollution. While we know that changing the system is hard, we have to start somewhere. So please join us on this second epic event. To go a little bit more into detail on our cleanups, our local cleanup, it will be at the Dempster Greenwood Street Beach. It is nestled in Evanston, Illinois, where this residential beach is enjoyed by residents for swimming, sailing, and more. It's from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. You can come anytime during that time, and all supplies are provided. So it's going to be a good time, where you network and get together with friends, but we're also doing good for the community. And I have to mention it's also a collaboration with the Chicago Scuba Meetup Club. For the Mexican cleanup, it is located right in the Cancun area, a place called the Acumo Bay in Mexico. This area is known for its higher, more affluent residents and tourists. However, being a beautiful hub for tourism, it is highly contaminated with trash and especially plastic pollutants. Being that this is a big area for swimming with turtles, so they have a big tourism thing there where you can actually go in the water and swim with these turtles, but then these turtles are being harassed. It is a big location for turtle nesting. So this is especially so important. It begs for help in so many ways to clean up the beach for these turtles and to even, I'm going to throw in stuff to stop harassing these poor little animals. Well, now I call them little because we see the Archelon. So encouraging people from the Midwest area, we are looking to form a cleanup that also incorporates their local community. We want to create a sense of education, ownership, and hopefully an improved outlook for the future. Green Dolphin Project will be bringing this cleanup together in the form of a trip, where we actually have a cleanup day, but then we'll also have days of scuba and enjoy the surrounding area in a very sustainable way. So we are networked with a local dive shop out there, GUE instructors, that will also be networking and collaborating on their end in Mexico to kind of make this a bigger event. So we're pretty excited about it. We're going to be doing good for the community while also enjoying the wildlife there. Our last initiative that we have going on currently is wildlife trafficking, and I just wanted to mention that we have a wonderful volunteer, Teresa Detloff, that is heading this initiative. It's a very big passion three-part initiative that includes awareness, advocacy, and action. For the awareness phase, we will use existing platforms to call attention to the pervasive nature of online trafficking and its local and global impacts. Create tangible materials for dissemination, generate social media content about the basics of online trafficking, post a 3 to 4 in-depth blog post explaining more about the complicated concepts, and produce an inclusive YouTube video to further the campaign's reach. We have an advocacy component, is showcasing how individuals can make conscious choices to protect wildlife from illegal trafficking at home. Just one example that I have is, I'm going to say about 15 years ago, I went to a pumpkin patch where they had the tigers, and you can hold a little baby tiger and feed it and all that. If you know anything about that industry, they actually, after 2 years or so, those tigers are killed or whatever, or sold, because after 2 years old, they're no longer valuable for tourism because the tigers are dangerous once they get bigger. So, social media content, we will direct viewers to additional resources such as podcasts and book reviews. We're going to offer blog posts peddling best practices and partner locally with stakeholders to support existing projects from places or organizations such as the USFWS, the Brookfield Zoo, and Lincoln Park Zoo. Create a sustainable product that can be marketed and sold to raise funds. As you know, all organizations are looking to raise funds so that we could do our work. And lastly, the action for wildlife trafficking, implement a local initiative and project that engages local stakeholders and residents of the local community. I don't know if any guns will be involved, being that this is wildlife trafficking and it's a highly dangerous situation. I know maybe Andre can help me with that, but the research is underway as we develop that project. And we ask you to stay tuned for more project updates. I wanted to introduce you again to my team. I'm the CEO and founder. Andre is our managing director. And we have Teresa Dutloff, who is our legal advisor and wildlife trafficking lead. We also have 2 other people that support us in education and scientific. We also have partnerships with local partners such as the Coalition for Plastic Reduction, the Illinois Environmental Council, and then of course, Mission Blue. So do reach out to us. Our website is very easy, greendolphinproject.org. Or I actually do have a paper that you can put your email address on. We have an emailing list to keep up to date. I don't send too many updates. I try to keep it sweet and simple. Obviously, we have Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Oh, and YouTube. So I have a big YouTube channel that I am growing, and this is where we show some of our adventures that we have, while also talking about conservation issues and water issues and things like that. So do check it out by searching for greendolphinproject.org. And that's all that I have. Does anyone have any questions?
Can anyone go to those cleanups?
Yeah, so anybody can go to those cleanups. The one at Greenwood Beach in Evanston, we're just asking for a general RSVP that yes, you're going or not, just so we are providing food and beverage so that we have enough food and beverage for everybody. And then obviously the trip for Mexico, that's going to be, I'm going to say a 5 to 7 day trip, and then the social media and all that, I'll have places where you can register and join us, so anybody can go. Any other questions?
Are there any cleanup options in Michigan at the moment?
Pardon?
Are there any cleanup options in Michigan at the moment?
If there's someone to collaborate with, we could definitely set something up. So if you know of a very specific location, if you want to even be the liaison for that, you know, we could work together and get a cleanup going for sure. Sure.
How do you sustain the organization? What are your sources of funding?
I'm sorry, what was that again?
How do you sustain the organization? What are your sources of funding?
We're still working on funding. So right now, through collaboration, we haven't had any
Volunteerism.
we haven't had any need for money, but when I do my research, I am applying for grants and such as that. I will be having items for sale, such as jewelry and stuff like that. I'm looking to collaborate with an organization that has a wildlife tracking with the GPS signal. So we'll have numerous ways that I'm still slowly growing into that. So I will mention that I started Green Dolphin Project just 2 years ago. It took a year to go through all the paperwork and get it registered as a 501c3. So this is the first year that we're officially getting all these activities together and working through all this. Any other questions?
I think I know the answer to this, but I'll ask it anyway. The WhatsApp situation that the Explorers Club has set up, I know there are a number of different channels that people are involved in. Could you talk a little bit about whether you've been able to connect to people through that or how that works?
Yeah, I know there's the Ocean Channel, there's an Arctic Channel, things like that. A lot of the talk that I've seen in those channels are based in other countries so far. But yeah, it's definitely a good resource to collaborate and connect with people to try to get your projects going forward.
I think it also might be, if you announce through there, you might find more people in the local area that could be interested both in that and the Mexico one.
Yeah, good idea, thank you.
Are you based in Chicago?
Yeah, we're based in Chicago, so we're in the northwest suburbs. Been there all my life, so I'm very familiar with the area. And so it's very near and dear to my heart to protect it and also to educate people how we are connected to the oceans, even though we are in a land-based location. So
Do you have a facility, office, or do you just work out of a home?
I work out in my home. So
The home, the car, the back seat, the front seat?
yeah, exactly. So I work profusely on this. My day job is as a lab scientist, so I work profusely on this early in the morning, like 4 to 4:30, 4 to 45, and then I work on my break, and then sometimes on my lunch, and then sometimes when I get home, but I usually am with Andre, so.
Where do you see the organization in 5 years?
That's a good, well, hopefully I won't have, I mean, the easy part is that I won't have these more cleanups under my belt, create a wider audience. I definitely am looking to grow the YouTube channel because it's my best way of getting the message out in a very creative and entertaining way. I try to make the videos very entertaining. And then hopefully I also get this grant, some grants money to do this research because it is very valuable research that needs to be done. It hasn't been done yet. And obviously I want to be the person that does it before somebody else is doing it. So through talking to many people, I have found out that this research definitely needs to be done. So, and I feel very highly qualified to get it done, given my background. So, and then obviously, hopefully, we grow the wildlife trafficking. We can have some sort of impact with that, even with the pet trade.
How big a grant are you looking for?
I was looking for about
$5 million.
yeah, right. I was looking at like 7,000 to 10,000 there, I guess. So, because I have to rent incubators, stuff like that. I have to buy the supplies, all of that stuff. So, we'll get there. I'm confident that we'll get there.
You know, it seems like this is a huge problem. Is the government or the government, you know, like one time we had a terrible revolution and we were downwind of that. And that seemed to just dry up and we took care of that. Is there any major government initiative? Because St. Joe River flows right into Lake Michigan and we have a lot of plastic pollution in that. But it seems like, you know, there needs to be a major push fairly quickly, not just, you know, I mean, science is pretty clear.
Yeah, so there is a huge push on the Coalition of Plastic Reduction and the Illinois Environmental Council that they have calls almost every week. The women, it is all women, I don't know why, but the women that work on that team are very aggressive, very passionate. We have a call coming up where we're deciding on what we're going to push for new legislation next year. It's very intense, and then through social media, we're trying to promote the messages out to the communities, to try to get more people involved, because we all have to, it's all based on pressuring the government officials, right? Because they want to be reelected. So if there's a ton of people that want a certain legislation and they want to be reelected, they're going to listen to the people. You know, hopefully they're going to listen to the people because they want to make the people happy. So we're trying to make these pushes really big. We did get the styrofoam containers removed from the local schools, the universities. Our next push is to get it removed from the larger venues. So that's a big push that they have, like music venues for concerts and stuff like that. I know there's a lot of musicians that are really pushing to have more sustainable concerts. So hopefully there's a push on multiple levels to slowly start eradicating this plastic. It was just passed in the state of Illinois that we can no longer have, or hotels can no longer provide the small plastic bottles of shampoos and stuff. So it's unfortunate that it's such small little steps, but yet these small little steps seem to be all that we have to push for this legislation, and it really takes the power of the people to make a difference. I mean, really, that's all that we can do is the power of the people is to come together and say what we want and hopefully make a difference. It's very discouraging at times, but
Can you speak to microplastics being found in the brain recently?
in the brain,
Yes.
I mean, I know that they've been found, and I know that that's, not many things pass the blood-brain barrier, so for them to be that small, to be able to pass through, is a very big thing. As you know, glucose is one of the only items that can pass the blood-brain barrier. So yeah, I mean, I don't even know, they're still working on studies to determine, like, what this is doing to damage the brain. And then how do you prove that these microplastics are actually the cause of your brain symptoms and stuff like that? It's such a complex thing, and there's so much funding that's needed to do this research. So hopefully more people get involved in performing this research, it becomes more of a bigger need.
And the other question, what about, instead of styrofoam, what is the push towards, like what they used in the Olympics several years ago in the Netherlands, the Netherlands that they used, corn-based?
Yeah, so this is a highly controversial topic because compostable materials that you use for serving, like they see at restaurants and stuff, are usually not really compostable. There's very limited access to compostable systems that can actually compost that material. So, and then this is all becomes very confusing to the consumer and to us as restaurant patrons. We think we're doing good by using compostable materials, but really, we're just creating more waste and more damage and more chemicals and stuff like that. So the way to go is to, reuse containers. If you're going to a restaurant, to bring your own container. Even if they say it's not allowed in, just bring it in anyway. I mean, what are they gonna do? Kick you out? No. So, I mean, I'm a rebel that I'll do whatever I need to do to do what I want to do. So, yeah. So I'm just not really for all these other alternative. It's just too complicated and complex, and I just think that reuse or not using is the way to go.
I think we can use a lot of plastics, and I think the problem is that plastics are so cheap, and they're so local, and changing them immediately. So we're trying to look at alternative sources for plastics that
Right.
are based.
Even aluminum based, because aluminum is recyclable and it's recyclable multiple times. So back during the pandemic, I started a group called Zero Waste Warriors, and we worked really hard to talk to all these different restaurants in the area. We had like 50 restaurants we were working with to try to get them to transition, which obviously was the wrong time to do it because people were already strapped for cash. But we were really excited to try, and it was a learning experience. We also tried to work with Portillo's to get them to get rid of their styrofoam cups and such, but they transitioned to a corporate situation, so that became very unapproachable because we were no longer approaching the Portillo family.
You mentioned in your talk about filters, I believe, in laundry and washing machines
Right.
and so forth. I'm just curious, what is the primary source of these microplastics in the laundry? Is it a combination of the fabric? Is it a combination of what's in
Yeah,
the
so
soap?
most of our clothes are made of plastic. As you know, polyester is plastic. So, and then with fast fashion being the typical, when I used to buy clothes when I was, in high school and everything, I still have those clothes. I still wear those clothes because those clothes are still lasting. But now we have fast fashion where it's all acrylics, polyesters, and these are all plastics, plastic clothing that is shedding, like I said, 700,000 particles per load. It is really hard because if you want to buy sustainable clothes, it is more expensive. And then I am a fashion diva, so then it's very limited in the types of clothing that you can find that are fashionable, that are actually eco-friendly. So 10 years ago, I started doing my own organic fashion line, and it just proved to be too expensive to maintain. But I did have organic t-shirts, 100% organic cotton that I was supporting, especially elephant organizations in Africa. So I was using part of the proceeds to get to them and selling these t-shirts. But once again, the t-shirts are so expensive, and then to resell them, you're only making a couple bucks.
I was curious about the common usage of the laundry pods.
Yeah.
If that has produced a lot of these microplastics because they're very convenient, people use them in their dishwashers.
Right.
And laundry, that's where a lot of this is coming from.
Yeah, they're also saying now with the detergent sheets that are eco-friendly, those also have plastic in them. So, what do? You put vinegar in your water, right? I mean, it seems to work. I use it with my cat water, it works just fine. So it just doesn't smell real pretty and all that, but there's ways to work around it if you really, really are determined and want to.
If you were able to get the plastic particles you're interested in eliminating, what would be the size range? If you could eliminate one size range, these particles, what would that be?
Microplastics are generally 5 millimeters or smaller, so they can even be microscopic. So,
in other words, in microns, for instance.
yeah, they're microns big.
Okay, so but I'm saying, what would be the most useful size range to be able to eliminate first?
Well, I'm going to say the single-use plastics, the silverwares,
size
the
is
water
the same.
bottles.
So basically, the smallest ones are the ones that are getting in the bloodstream. So you want to eliminate the smallest
These
ones
would be the best
possible.
one. And what is that size range?
The size range of the microplastic?
The smallest particle.
I mean, it's microscopic down to, you cannot even see it. So it's been stated that plastics never go away. They don't decompose down to the full fossil fuel that they came from, that they actually continue to exist forever in the environment in the tiniest, minutest size. And that's why, for whatever reason, I did mention it, that even the plankton in our oceans, like these huge whale sharks, they siphon out the water and they're eating all this plankton, and the plankton now has even ingested these microplastics. So that's why it's so prudent, eating up this food web chain, that even if the tiniest microorganism in the ocean is ingesting these microplastics, and then the larger fish, and then the larger fish, and then the sharks, and the whale sharks, and then we're eating these fish. I mean, you could just imagine the amount of plastic accumulation that is involved in these fish. So I don't even want to be tested to see what's in my body, But it's just the tip of the iceberg. So
Would you say then that particles say less than 1 micron? If you could get rid of all of those, would that be the best, most helpful in this situation?
I mean, at this point, we're at such a desperate stage, getting rid of anything. But yeah, the smallest particles that we can remove, the better, because those are getting into the smallest of organisms in our water systems, or even our land systems. And then what studies have been done that we're applying these biosolids that have the microplastics in them. So this is being applied to our crops. Now, how is that even being incorporated into our plants? Are our plants uptaking that plastic through the roots? I mean, those studies have not even been done. And as you know, like the general public doesn't even realize that our food is being fertilized with this stuff. So there is just, it's just so huge of a topic. So, you know, I've just dedicated myself to just trying to do as much as I can. I recycle. Recycling is not the best option, but you know, I just try to do what I can on a daily basis, and I don't try to fix other people. I just want to fix the situation out there so that we can all just generally live our lives in a better environment. So, you had a question?
I think one of the easiest things to understand about microplastics is the fuzzy fleeces we all love to wear.
Yeah.
You wash that in the washing machine and it becomes lint.
Right.
And that small thin lint dries out and becomes dust.
Yeah.
And that dust is microscopic. And
That
it's
is
everywhere.
wrong.
So it's, you know, we see, I'm in the construction industry, we see it in a lot of the stuff we do, where at the end of the day, we're sweeping up stuff. I'm sure half of what we sweep up is just degradation of dust that comes off the products we use.
Yeah, and then we're breathing that, and then, you know, it's going out through our vent systems, so it's going out into, you know, the backyard where, you know, birds are nesting. You know, birds are making a nest out of plastic, but,
Kids are playing.
You see the outdoor plastics degrade under the UV light of the sunlight over a couple of years to where, you know, the woven scrapping in your lawn chair becomes crumbly and goes away.
right,
And that's just all going into dust.
right, yeah, they're very, photodegradable.
What about the water bottles?
Excuse me?
Talk about the water bottles and how do they break down?
Well, I mean, those are just gonna break down through the photodegradation, slowly, you know, break apart, and then those pieces slowly, you know, break apart with photodegradation. I mean, yeah, I mean, that's a large, place where the microplastics are coming from, so.
I have a question. I think all this initiative is really very good, very powerful. But I think to make it one step powerful is if it can be correlated to a human condition, a disease process that's caused by plastic. Has there been any identified condition? human
Yes.
condition?
Is there an identified condition? Well, they've been talking about the hormone disrupting chemicals in the plastics. So there is more research on that could be correlated to this initiative for sure. And I know that hormones are, well, I mean, you know, a lot of us are concerned with hormones and stuff like that. So, and then the way that it affects children and their health risks especially.
Because I think an element of a segment where there's actually a direct human correlation
Yeah.
would fortify this research to be more like, hey, let's do something about it. Because if it's just finding out and people don't realize it can affect them, people will be
Right.
They actually like an impact. And if we have a partnership with an Asian countries, I think you'll probably find any human condition right away that if you can identify a specific diagnosis and pathophysiology on it, I think it's going to make it powerful.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Something's causing me to
That's kind of what I was getting with the brain.
Yes.
Because when people feel like their brain is being compromised, they're
Yes.
more likely to listen.
Well, these are good suggestions, and I will definitely look into them.
And I'm just thinking, because we're here, we've got all of these examples of these animals that no longer exist. We're putting ourselves at risk of extinction and not really thinking about it.
Even quicker, you know, because we have all these other variables that weren't present during the time of the dinosaurs. So, you know, the dinosaurs just had to deal with the weather, and, you know, stuff like that.
Things coming down.
We have all these other components that how long are we going to be around? You know, the shortest living species ever. Hey, just kidding. Yeah.
Adding on to that, the dinosaurs, they didn't know what they were dealing with, or they didn't know, you know, obviously they didn't understand the media, but I feel like we do, and we have the most, you know, capabilities to stop things and better ourselves than any other species we know of, and I feel like we need to, you know, take advantage of that.
Yeah.
Try to stop things, or at least improve things in general for our species, because that's something really no other species has been able to do on its own.
Plus, we're advocating for all the other species on the planet, right? So.
Well, thank you so much, Natalie.